Hello, everyone. This is Sergio Morero. We're here with another episode of RBL1 Live. We have our special guest today, Tara Tan, who is founding partner of IDEO Creative Capital. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, nice to meet you, and good to see everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. And just to share a little bit about Tara, for those that don't know, she got her master's at Harvard Graduate School of Design, also graduate of University of Bristol, has a deep background in design and was previously a design director and was part of founding IDEO CoLab, IDEO, CoLab Ventures, and now IDEO Creative Capital. So excited to hear a little bit more about your journey. But if you could share a little bit with the audience, what is IDEO Creative Capital?
Absolutely. So IDEO Creative Capital is something I've been working on for a good part of the last year. It's a early stage general fund, VC fund, that's affiliated with IDEO, which is a design consultancy that we all know and love. IDEO really pioneered the whole idea of human-centered design and design thinking. If you see Post-its, on the wall and sort of people arranging them, that's sort of part of the IDEO magic that we've brought to the world. And really at the core of IDEO is, and design thinking and human-centered design, is the thought that, it's really centered around users' needs. And so if you deeply understanding users' needs, you can then prototype, create, and make things that people love. And that's sort of at the core of our investing thesis as well.
Excellent. And so what types of startups are you looking to invest in, and what size investments do you make?
Yeah, so we're primarily looking at seed, Series A, with follow-ons to B and beyond. For startups, we're pretty open. I think we're really looking for, I think our sweet spot's really finding startups that really leverage creativity and innovation and technology. So I think that's the center of it all. But we invest pretty broadly. We're fairly sector agnostic. So this means, we could be looking at the future of work, which is really big for us right now. I think we're undergoing a huge revolution in how people see work and play, with the creator economy, collaborative tools, creative tools, and so on, and all the products, services, and applications that support this new ecosystem. And I think, beyond that, we invest in, the future of learning, which is massive right now. It's totally, we're looking at learning in a fundamentally different way. So we're looking at that. We're looking at, this just huge demand driving change in sort of legacy systems like healthcare, like mobility, like Fintech. And I think we're deeply looking at those as well for the next wave of innovations there. So these are all domains and networks that IDEO has built up an expertise in over the last 40 years through our consulting arm. This venture arm is not directly related to the consulting arm, but we obviously draw on a lot of sector expertise and insights based on that.
And you're sort of alluding to it in how you're describing it. Can you talk about how IDEO Creative Capital is different? You intend to be different because of the consultancy next to you and that deep that deep relationship.
Yeah, right. So to be clear, we don't invest. Our investment business isn't related. It's kind of like we're like sisters, but we're not dependent on each other. But I think what we're building on is really this deep domain knowledge that we have built up over the years, deep domain expertise and networks and sort of enterprises across the globe. As well as, honestly, I think our secret sauce is bringing design to the craft of venture, and I think that's what we really stand for. I think designers are built differently. I think entrepreneurship is a creative act inherently, and I think by bringing designers to the cap table, to the investing landscape, I think is where we'll fundamentally make a difference, because we see things differently. I think we're able to imagine the future. We're able to build with the founders that we invest in. And we're really open to prototyping. We coach our founders to understand users' needs and apply that understanding and synthesis to building products that other people would love. And we're builders ourselves. And I think founders see that and want to build alongside with us.
Excellent. And what is that for early stage founders that, like you said, they're hustling, they're grinding? What does that end up looking like, especially for it? Let's say they're in a highly technical field. We were talking a moment ago about the crypto or blockchain space, and they're creating applications. How does that mesh with trying to think about how can a design-led VC enhance that?
I'm glad you asked that question.
Venture.
I think it's absolutely, I think it's so relevant. So the first fund I was at IDEO was IDEO CoLab Ventures, and I was part of the team, sort of setting that up. And IDEO CoLab Ventures is an early stage crypto fund that really spun out of an R&D lab that we were looking at emerging technologies, going deep into blockchain, understanding protocols. And a lot of people asked, "You're designers, what are you doing in such a highly technical space?" And I think my answer to that is it's actually so complementary. It's so needed. The more technically minded you are, and you're so deep into protocol, you're so deep into designing the systems, and that itself is, it's part of design. So I think we have proven over the years, just worked closely hand in hand with the most technical founders you've ever heard of, and we've designed with them. We've designed incentives, token economics. We've designed, sort of obviously user experience as well to get them on board market. I mean, crypto, even now, it's still pretty much an emerging technology, right? A lot of it's hard to use. It's not as easy for mainstream people to use or use in their daily lives. And I think design is where we can really bridge that gap and really take the technology, which is amazing and incredible, and so much innovation is happening, to the mainstream itself. And we see that a lot, with the cultural stuff that's happening. And I think a lot of what design brings and culture brings is a lot of cultural capital, as I call it, creative capital and cultural capital that brings the technology to the mainstream market.
Excellent. And I know from would love to dive into some of the how it started, but I don't want to leave out your journey. If you can share a little bit more of what led you as a designer from maybe even your undergrad or the GSD Graduate School of Design at Harvard to now leading or co-partner, being the co-founder of a fund.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely an interesting journey. Would I recommend it? Hell yes, absolutely. Definitely unconventional. I'm probably one of the few creatives, artists, designers turn investors in the world. It's been a long journey, but I think my creative journey when I started off in undergrad as an artist and designer was really to imbue technology with art. So I was creating art pieces and installations that looked at technology, that brought in technology. I was working a lot with AR. I was looking a lot with augmented intelligence then, and that really started my journey into technology. So I started off there, just creating art pieces. Went to the GSD, Harvard Graduate School of Design, where I did design and technology, and sort of got really deep into, computational design. Honestly, digital manufacturing, bioengineering, like all that, good stuff. And then from then on, continued diving deep into tech and led design at several, tech startups. I founded a tech startup myself. And from then on, I joined IDEO to lead their venture studio, which was at that point an incubation lab for IDEO CoLab. So with that, we were planning to work with founders to launch the earliest seeds of a startup in emerging tech. So I've always loved design and technology. Did not expect my journey to bring me here, but I really enjoy it. I love working with startups. I love working with founders. I love seeking out and being inspired by the most ambitious founders out there.
Excellent. And if you can share a little bit about, you said the first shift was into IDEO CoLab of what is IDEO CoLab. I know for those that may not know, startups have raised quite a bit of money out of, coming out of incubation, out of CoLab. Even one of them just recently, Syndicate, raised 20 million. Has Andreessen Horowitz leading their round in their Series A, like pretty notable, amazing ventures. So can you talk a little bit with the audience and just share a little bit of what
Sure,
is
yeah.
CoLab? Yeah.
So CoLab, interesting journey. We had an interesting model where it was really about collaborative innovation. So the idea there was to bring together academia, startup founders, and innovation arms of big corporations who are interested in diving into the next cycle of technology. At that time, it was blockchain. We looked at other emerging tech like AI, ML, IoT, and so on. So that was where IDEO CoLab started. It was a really great model. It was so fascinating to be in a room and hear these different voices and perspectives kind of meet and convene around a certain topic, and that was super cool. So IDEO CoLab Ventures, which spun out of that, is an early stage VC fund. So it's not an incubator per se, but we did back startups, at the earliest stages. So everything from pre-seed and beyond. We held incredible founder days and founder summits where we really coached founders to find, their first prototype and first signs of product market fit. So it was really fun.
So you were guiding founders. You weren't necessarily birthing ventures, right? Is it more like a venture studio model where you're designing the venture from scratch, or you guys were bringing in outside founders and helping?
Yeah, it was a long evolution of over 5 or 6 years. I started up. I came in on the venture studio side.
Got it.
But it sort of morphed into a fund where we backed early stage founders.
Got it. Okay, amazing. That's amazing. And then now, what inspired the shift from, this I guess CoLab Ventures to the Creative Capital? What's the differentiation there?
I love crypto. I love the technology. The fund is doing super well. I believe they're on fund 2 right now. So if you're an early stage crypto startup, definitely reach out to IDEO CoLab Ventures. They're amazing group of people. I think I was inspired to really champion design and ventures in the broader startup community. This is something that I, deeply have so much conviction in. Whether it's, creative founders, they can be technical founders, but have a creative streak. I think we're really looking for that spark, people who are trying to really reach the next, sort of the next wave of innovation. I think that's what we're looking for. So with this deep conviction around design and ventures, and that's something I've been carrying with me for, the last, 15 years, I am inspired to kind of build that capability within IDEO itself, and really bridge that across the startup community, across different domains, whether it's mobility, food, fintech, creator economy, media and technology, gaming. I think there's so much innovation happening, and I'm excited to be part of that wave.
Excellent. And you mentioned previously future of learning. Now, I mean, since COVID is, I know more universities are going back in person now, but the force to do things virtually, it really forced some evolution that we had the technology to do, but the user experience, what people weren't shifting to that user experience, even though it was a lot less expensive to do that. But yeah, what are some trends you see that you're most excited about, whether it be future of learning, healthcare, or other areas?
Yeah, that was a great prompt. I mean, I think, what you're alluding to is this basically cultural shift that's happened over the last couple of years across the world, where, we could always have done a lot of online learning. We had the technology to do so, but we're just not in that mindset shift. But I think the new context that we're in, the new situation that we're in, has sort of accelerated that pace of change. Learning is a huge one. Healthcare is a huge one. Telemedicine was advocated for so long. There's so much regulation in place that was actually holding it back. And with the pandemic, that changed, within a week. So it's totally wild. I think telemedicine is a huge one. Learning is a huge one. I'm an immigrant myself. I grew up in Singapore. I went to school in the UK. I now live in the US. So for me, being globally connected through the internet is such a natural way of being. And I think that the more platforms and products that enable us to connect just globally is something that I definitely stand for.
That's great. And yeah, that's one of the ones where one of the previous startups I worked on was in the ed tech space, and
Nice.
and same thing that I maybe spoke about 5 or 6 years ago is the same thing we're talking about now. And it's really interesting that the cultural, at least in certain spaces, it's primarily cultural. But education and healthcare, where it's a little bit different in, let's say, in computing or finance, where there's always a rush to do something cheaper, better, faster. That cheaper, better, faster isn't usually the mantra in healthcare education, which it's fascinating, has different dynamics, different stakeholders, and so
totally. I'm so curious about the startup you were working at, but it seems like, we're starting to unearth a lot of the nuances of what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
So digital learning isn't so much just about content, it's also about community.
Yep.
And it's so interesting to see, okay, what does that mean in the digital space? And I think we're exploring that across multiple factors, like in media and entertainment, that's huge. In gaming, that's huge. What is community really? And obviously we're looking at the creator economy stuff as well, which is truly that. So community-driven products would be really interesting to look at in the future.
Excellent. Yeah, and it is true. We're seeing it now, that community and then also the serendipitous in person, the robust channel of communication. We're seeing it more in companies that are hesitant to promote people because they either haven't engaged with them or they actually haven't learned as quickly because they've primarily operated in a virtual environment, and there's learning that hasn't taken place, or they feel that hasn't taken place. So there's a perception and then also there may be some reality to that as well. Interesting to see how that changes the workplace evolution.
Absolutely. Oh, I could go into that for a long time. I think the future of work is so fascinating. We talk about cultural sort of shifts. I think the biggest shift that we're looking at is the shifts in our blocks of time. The 9 to 5 is such a relic from the manufacturing generation, right? Like you clock in, you clock out. This is when the machines worked. This is when everyone needed to be there, and we haven't shifted, for the digital age. And I think this is a real chance to kind of push it and break it a little bit more. With the right tools, we could work async when we needed to, and sync up when we need to. I think it just allows for so much more flexibility. It allows for so much more efficiency as well in the workplace. So I'm really, really fascinated by that.
Yeah, and well, I'll open the door there in the future. I would love to hear more. It's like what specific areas within that are you most excited about, that you think there's maybe a lot of the founders that may be listening, what problems should they be wrestling with there to work on the things that need to be built?
Oh, so much. I think it really depends on where you have true passion for it, because I think there's a lot of I wouldn't say obstacles, but just legacy that has to be broken down and shifted. But I think, there are really interesting startups that I love that are working in, for example, the future of health insurance. So simple, but it's so tied to your workplace right now. And if you are someone who has multiple streams of income, working in multiple ways, making a living in multiple ways, which is great, because, as people, we are multifaceted, and we should have multiple streams of income wherever we can make it. And how are they served in terms of the healthcare, sort of community? And there are startups working on that I think is super fascinating. I think there'll be a whole suite of financial services built on that. So everything from creative assets to being able to take out loans or business loans based on your multiple streams of income, and sort of the potential of that, growth potential of that. So I think there's a lot of financial startups that will be built around that. Collaborative tools, again, just shifting a little would be huge. So more tools for us to be able to work and connect more efficiently online, I think would be great. Spaces to connect more sort of authentically digitally would be great as well. I think there's just a whole slew from sort of legacy industry stuff, fintech, health. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's I said I'm still waiting just for my my communication to my app where I can just text across all the other.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know. I don't understand why we're so fragmented. I mean, everyone's digital identity is insane. Like we have to log into 7 multiple places, check in 7 different like chat platforms. It's totally wild.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about your background and the origin story of the IDEO Creative Capital. Can you share a little bit with the audience is about what's next for IDEO Creative Capital?
Yes. So this is a general fund for us. I think we're really looking at pushing and championing design adventures. So look out for lots of great content from us. Whether it's about bringing design to healthcare, bringing design to fintech, or looking at the new sort of social dynamics in the creator economy. Look out for great content. We might also be launching some programming just to coach founders through how to use design basically in venture. And I think that's something that we're working really hard on and hope to push out into the world soon.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Tara. For the audience that just tuned in, Tara Tang, founding partner of IDEO Creative Capital. Thanks for joining us and sharing your story today. And tune in next week to hear from more leaders like Tara. So thanks again for joining us.